My name is Liam Hash. I'll be doing my project on how to do a full oil service to a car. So a background on oil. Every car is with a internal combustion engine uses oil to lubricate the engine and keep everything running smoothly. From your crankshaft bearings to your valve train and even your turbo, everything needs oil to stay running smoothly and as efficiently as possible. Oil can be in three stages or like three types: conventional, synthetic, or a synthetic blend, which is a blend of the last two. Fully synthetic is the best oil to run in modern cars as they're made to run for that. Oil has a property called viscosity. This is its resistance to flow. This is a number represented from about 0 to 50 for most common automobiles. Engine weights are often represented as a code, for example, 5W30. 5W means 5 winter. This is its viscosity value when the ambient temperature is about 32 degrees Fahrenheit. 30 being its viscosity value when the car is up to its spec operating temperature, which is about 190 degrees Fahrenheit to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Cars in colder climates need oil with a lower viscosity or lower winter viscosity level to allow the oil to flow smoothly and to lubricate the whole engine when the engine is cold. You can find online or in your owner's manual the correct type of oil your car requires. So, my rationale and ethos: why am I credible? I've performed a lot of oil changes to my own cars and friends and family's cars. I've done new cars and old cars, ranging from, like 2021s to like 1980s. So I have a lot of experience all over the board with cars. I also would like to become a mechanic at some point, so I've done my fair share of research on the topic and became educated and knowledgeable in it. Why should you change your own oil instead of just going to Jiffy Lube? So, changing your oil is a great way to save money, being cost-effective alternative to getting it serviced. And it's also really satisfying doing it yourself, knowing that the car was properly serviced by you. And any kind of margin of error was your own, rather than it being someone else's problem where there could be a bigger margin of error, such as like someone over torquing your drain plug and then stripping it, and then you got to get a new oil pan. Jiffy Lube also tends to charge really like outrageous prices for simple oil changes that takes them all like 20 or 30 minutes to complete, but will charge you in excess of $100 for a full synthetic oil change. You can do one yourself for like 40 to 50 bucks, assuming you have all the tools. It's been showed at a few locations that they can even use regular conventional oil in your engine while you pay for synthetic. It's a scam that's been running, and you wouldn't even know the difference because you wouldn't know how to change your own oil. So here's what you're going to need. So to start, you're going to need to source an oil filter spec for your car. You can usually get these from your local auto parts store, and you'll have to also source the proper oil from your car or for your car. You can find the right type of oil in your owner's manual, on the oil cap, or online. Likewise, you will also need a new copper crush washer for your drain plug. The tools you're going to need for this are a jack and jack stands, or a pair of ramps. I prefer ramps, they're a little bit easier, but a jack and jack stands will do. It's a little more tedious though. You're going to need a box end wrench of the correct size for your drain plug. You're going to need an oil filter wrench for a spin-on type filter, or a tool for removing the cover of a cartridge type oil filter. A lot of newer cars are going to have cartridge types, like my car, but like my older BMW uses a spin-on type. You're also going to need an oil catch tub to catch the old oil when the drain plug is pulled, and then you can dispose it. You can take it to the dump, or you can take it to auto parts store and they can dispose of it for you. And there are also like public places where you can dump it off in two like tubs, big barrels, and they'll dispose of it for you. You'll also need a torque wrench with a socket of the appropriate size for the drain plug, so you can torque it to spec and so it doesn't fall out while you're driving and drain all your oil, and then you'll have catastrophic engine failure. So you're going to begin. It's best to start the car and let it run for a few minutes before an oil change to get the viscosity of the oil flowing more. It gets everything kind of up to temperature, warm, and it lets the oil flow more. You're going to want to jack it up from the front end using a car jack and jack stands on either side. You can use the pinch welds on either side of the rocker panel, on the sides of the cars right underneath the door up in the top right picture. Make sure that you use proper tested jack stands, because if you don't and there was a failure and your jack did fall into your jack stands, you're going to run into a bad time. You can also jack it up by the control arms in the middle picture. If you're jacking up by the control arms, just make sure that you don't jack anywhere that you could damage the control arm or any like the bushings or any of the ball joints or anything like that. If you are jacking up by the pinch welds, it's best on the left picture to get some pinch weld jacking pucks. You place these on the jack stand and the jack, and they slot into your pinch welds. It's best practice to use those because you can bend your pinch welds. If it's metal on metal, the pucks act as sort of a cushion for your pinch weld. If you're using ramps, none of this matters. You just drive it right up onto the ramps. Be careful not to go over because you're also going to run into a bad time then. And then you'll have to use jacks to get it off, and you'll probably damage your oil pan. Yeah. So for step 2, you're going to want to go underneath the car and locate the oil pan. It should be right underneath in the middle. It's just a big open like tub. And then you're going to want to locate the drain plug. It should be on the lowermost point of the the oil pan. It should be about a 17 to a 21 millimeter bolt. Any box end wrench of this size will do the job. You're going to want to place your oil catch tub underneath the drain plug, offset a little to compensate for the oil kind of shooting out at first. It's under a lot of pressure. Loosen the drain plug until it almost comes out. Keep a little bit of pressure on it and remove it so that you don't drop it, and because it'll all come flowing out at once. You want to make sure that you kind of have a little bit of control over that. Allow oil to flow for at least, like 4 to 5 minutes, or when it's dripping slow enough that you think it's ready to be put back together. So for step 3, you're going to want to add a new copper crush washer to the drain plug. You don't want to reuse the old one, and this is why. The crush washer is literally crushed in order to form a seal on the oil pan. If you use the old one, it probably won't seal right. I've seen some people get away with it, and it can work, but it's best practice just to buy a new one. They're not expensive. It's a couple cents. Go ahead and spin the drain plug on with the new copper washer back into the drain plug hole. Just spin it hand tight. There's no pressure right now, so it's cool for that. Then you're going to want to get your torque wrench with the socket of the appropriate size and torque it down to spec. It's usually about 10 to 20 Newton meters, but you can find this in your owner's manual or online with a Google search. For step 4, you're going to want to locate your oil filter and determine if it's a spin-on type or a cartridge type. A lot of newer cars use cartridge types. Like I said, older cars can use a spin-on type. With a cartridge type, you can use a cartridge wrench. They're a separate tool that you can use for that. And let drain into the drip pan. You pull the cartridge out, place it in the drip pan, just let it drain there. With a spin-on type, you have to have there's a special wrench that you can get and just loosen it rather, and you can just spin it right off, and again, anything that pours out will go into your drain pan. When you slip your new cartridge in to place, you want to fill, I didn't write this down, but you want to fill the cartridge area with oil first. It's best to fill it with oil. And then to have proper lubrication of everything immediately. Then you will put the cap back on, tighten it down with the wrench. It's usually about 20 to 30 Newton meters. With a spin-on type, you want to use some of the old oil or some of the new oil, and you want to put a little bit on your finger and run it along the O-ring. That's the big black rubber ring that's around the edge of it. This allows it to get a proper seal onto the engine block. You want to also fill the cartridge type, or not the cartridge type, rather, the spin-on type. You want to fill it up with oil before, and you're going to want to spin it on, and you can spin it on hand tight. It doesn't need to be any tighter than that, just as tight as you think it needs to go. Over time, it'll heat up, and it'll kind of like lock itself into place. If it makes you feel better, though, usually what I do is I take the filter wrench and I just tighten it a little bit more. For the last step, you want to remove your oil fill cap and use a funnel to fill it. It's best to use a funnel to avoid spills and all that. You can find the quantity or capacity of oil for your specific engine and car online or in your owner's manual. Once you've filled it to about where it's supposed to be, start the car and let it idle for about 30 seconds to a minute. This will get everything flowing and moving around, get it up to the top of the head and the valve cover, and let it all flow around to make sure that your sump is pulling. You're gonna want to turn the car off and then go back and fill it up, checking the dipstick every once in a while just to make sure that you're filling it up to the right place. Make sure you don't overfill it or underfill it. Then you're going to want to go ahead and put the dipstick back in and spin the cap back on tight. Make sure it's tight, or else it can come flying off and cause a problem, and we don't want that. So as for the conclusion, you've done a full oil change to your car. Congratulations. An experienced person can do a full oil change in about 20 to 30 minutes. With time and practice, you can get your time down too. Don't rush anything, as with any skill, it takes time to get good at it. Now you can drive your car for the next 5,000 or so miles knowing that it has fresh, clean oil in it and that the service was done properly by you. Doing a filter isn't always necessary every time, but it doesn't hurt to do every time, as it can extend the life of your car, keeping the oil clean and clear of contaminants.